Have you ever found yourself feeling, well, overlooked?
Hmm.
Maybe like you're working on something really important, wrestling with challenges, but from the outside it just looks quiet.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Or maybe people around you, even the ones who mean well, seem to project their own limitations onto what you're trying to achieve.
Right. Like they can't see it, so they assume you can't do.
Exactly. So if you felt underestimated or like you're navigating things that nobody else really sees, well, stick with us for this deep dive.
That feeling is so common, isn't it?
Yeah.
We look for those external signs, that validation. But the sources we're digging into today, they offer a really compelling counter perspective. They point somewhere else for where true strength and, well, victory are actually forged.
Absolutely. We've got this fascinating collection of writings here. They're steeped in spiritual principles, faith, and they draw a lot of insight, particularly from the Psalms.
Hmm.
Our mission today is to really unpack what these sources are telling us about finding victory in life. And maybe not just outward success, as the world defines it, but something deeper, a more resilient kind of strength.
Yeah, an internal foundation.
Right. We'll explore the crucial role of daily practice and how, according to this material, you can learn to live from a place of strength, of promise, even when things feel uncertain or just plain difficult.
And the sources, they hit you right away with this really potent idea.
Yeah.
That true victory, it might not start where you expect. It begins, they suggest, in the dark.
Okay, in the dark. Let's
Yeah.
unpack that. So the sources, they start by addressing that very feeling we talked about being underestimated.
Yeah.
They observe that people in our lives, sometimes operating from what they call a kind of low love, can project their own lack of vision onto you. It's like they assume, well, because they have limits, you must too.
And they even note this can show up as others maybe subtly suggesting you take it easy, reprieve thoughts or action, basically encouraging you to settle because they just don't grasp what's possible for you.
And the sources acknowledge external negativity can pile on too.
Right. It's not always just well-meaning people.
But the core message pushing back against all that, it's really powerful. God's people, the sources say flat out, are called to go beyond this limit.
And they state it unequivocally. With God, there could be no limits. That's a bold claim.
It really is. And this is where that idea of victory in the dark starts to make sense.
Yeah, the sources state all victory comes through God, and victory begins in the dark.
So what do they mean by the dark? Is it like a bad place?
Not necessarily bad, more like unseen.
Yeah.
That place when no one can see and it looks like nothing is happening.
Okay. The quiet phase,
Yeah.
the hidden work.
Exactly. The sources emphasize that even when outwardly things look static or maybe even tough, that is often precisely when the prayer is there. That's where God is already working behind the scenes. It's like a foundational strength being built when nobody's watching.
Right. Okay. So if victory is forged in this unseen place and you're maybe feeling underestimated or stuck in that dark phase, what do these sources actually recommend you do? What's the action step?
Well, according to this material, the central instruction is incredibly direct. It's simply, you put God on.
Put God on. Okay. Sounds simple, maybe deceptively so.
It does sound simple, but the sources unpack it as this really profound, comprehensive internal process. It's not just about gritting your teeth and trying harder. It's about actively becoming new.
Becoming new. Where
Everywhere. Like literally everywhere. In your thoughts, actions, ways of being, desires, and focus.
Wow. Okay.
And the sources suggest this involves intentionally saying less so you can invite God more into every area, every day. It's about creating that internal space for God's influence to really take hold.
And that sounds like it requires some serious self-examination too, right? It's not passive.
Oh, absolutely not. The sources call for looking really closely at the limits you believe, fears, what upsets, what holds you back, all that internal stuff. And they make a particularly sharp point, I think, about examining why, if God put something on your heart, a calling, a direction, a dream, why you might not be actively pursuing it. Not consistently, not every week or every day with planning and action.
Oof. Yeah, that's a direct challenge. And that idea, pursuing what God's put on your heart, seems to lead right into what the sources highlight as the essential engine for this whole change, discipline.
Exactly. Discipline. They connect it directly to the Psalm stating, operate with discipline.
Yeah.
That is what Psalms is talking about. That is what Psalms exemplifies.
And they use David as a key example, right?
Sure.
From the Psalms.
Yes, precisely. He's presented as, a psalmist and a king, and they acknowledge he was not perfect.
Yeah.
Far from it sometimes.
Right.
But the critical thing was that he was consistently seeking and encouraging himself in God
Okay, how? How did he do that according to the sources?
by remembering.
And
Remembering past victories God had given him, and by actively speaking of God's promises and God's ways and God's brilliance and God's favor, present and in the future, it was an active vocal thing.
so discipline isn't just like rigid routine. It's a disciplined focus on God, his character, his track record, even when things are messy or you slip up.
Yes. And the sources connect this discipline explicitly to living out what God has already given you.
Ah, okay. Say more about that.
Well, they state it quite clearly. When something is in our house, God has given it to us, and we don't have it, live it every day.
Right.
That comes down to the discipline of putting God on. It's like the gift is there, but the discipline is what allows you to actually live in it day by day. It's the choice to walk in the reality God has already set up for you.
I really appreciate the perspective on consistency here in the sources. It feels kinder. It's framed with intention, not judgment.
Yes, that makes it so much more approachable, doesn't it? They explicitly say, if you forgot yesterday, it's okay. Do your best today and for the week.
Right.
And they even give this practical metric, which I found interesting. 4 out of 7, 5 out of 7 days counts.
Okay. So it's not about some impossible standard of perfection.
Not at all. It's about building a consistent pattern, a habit of turning towards God, not beating yourself up if you miss a day.
It sounds like the goal is less about rigid rule following and more about consistently choosing to align with God, encouraging yourself in his fire and passion, declaring those victories he's promised.
Yes, and importantly, acting from a place of victory, as though it's already a done deal because God is with you.
Yeah, that reminds me a bit of Psalm 21, The king rejoices in your strength, Lord. Thou hast given him his heart's desire. It's speaking from that place of God's power and answered prayer.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is how the sources then pivot. After laying out this path, they identify what specifically gets in the way, what hinders this process of disciplined putting God on and acting from victory.
Okay, the roadblocks, what do they point to?
Well, the first big one they spotlight is just delay. They have a section titled, really pointedly, Stop Delaying, Start Living the Blessing.
Stop delaying. Okay.
They directly address those feelings of being lonely or feeling behind, and they counter them by saying, essentially, you are after what God said, and that's where your time and energy should be. Delaying, according to them, just keeps you from actually inhabiting that blessed place of alignment with God's plan for you.
Makes sense. Okay, what else?
Then there's distraction. Simple but powerful. The sources speak of the enemy, working specifically to distract you with everything but God.
Filling your mind and time with other things.
Right. And also letting defeated thoughts from the past dictate your present actions. If God has given something, the sources just insist it's yours. Live like it. Don't let past failures tell you it's not possible now.
This feels like it connects deeply to what they identify as the biggest deception. What is that again?
Self-deception. Lying to ourselves.
Ah.
Lying about what we want, who we are, and what we're capable of with God. The sources present this as the main stronghold, the primary thing that blocks healing, clarity, and living out that blessing we just talked about.
And these internal lies, the self-deception, they actually create distance, don't they, according to the sources?
Yes, exactly. Lying about not having time for God or for what truly matters, chasing things that don't actually fulfill all of this, just allows the space between us and God to widen.
That widening space.
Okay.
That feels dangerous.
It is, according to these writings. And this is where they bring in the living water concept.
Yeah.
Drawing on that story of Jesus and the woman at the well.
Right.
Their interpretation is that our spirit desperately craves God's truth. That's the living water. Specifically to dismantle these strongholds, these lies we tell ourselves.
To replace the deception.
Precisely. And the promise they emphasize is huge. This truth, this living water, doesn't just temporarily quench your thirst. God makes sure you never thirst again. It offers lasting satisfaction and freedom from those lies.
Wow. Okay, so if self-deception and the distance it creates are the main obstacles, the path forward, these sources must say, has to start with honesty.
Exactly. That's the key. Healing, blessing, clarity, it all opens up when you get brutally honest with yourself and then invite God in deeply to reveal what needs to change.
In every area.
Every single area.
Yeah.
Your heart, business, love, how you speak to yourself and others, no exceptions.
And this honesty, it fuels a consistent daily interaction, right? It's not a one-time thing.
Definitely not. The sources suggest specific questions to ask God daily. Things like, What are you saying to me? What will it take to live what you've put in my heart?
Mm-hmm.
And this powerful prayer of surrender, be the CEO of my life.
Be the CEO of my life. That's a big ask.
It is. It's a deliberate daily yielding. And alongside asking, they highlight the importance of other daily practices too, like affirmations declaring God's hand is on my life, making practical lists that align with God's direction for you, and just cultivating gratitude, thanking God.
They also give a pretty stark warning about the opposite of this engagement, don't they? About silence.
Yes, very stark. The sources state, the enemy is counting on your silence so he can speak. Don't give him that room.
Wow.
And they command, pointedly, don't rest from prayer. That really echoes Psalm 28, doesn't it? Where David cries out, unto thee will I cry, O Lord, my rock. Be not silent to me. It's that need for active, consistent connection, not letting silence take over.
So pulling all these threads together, the quiet beginnings, the daily putting God on, the discipline, facing deception, the honesty, the asking, how do the sources synthesize this? What's the simple version?
Well, they call it the simple life work, which involves get up, pray, be guided, act from victory, let God make you new again and again.
Simple but profound and hard work.
Definitely. And they reiterate that consistently living at the throne of grace, that place of daily access and connection to God, is what keeps that vital link strong. It prevents that widening space where distraction and self-deception can creep in.
It reminds me a bit of Psalm 15, asking who gets to dwell in God's sacred space. The implication is it requires a certain integrity and honesty, cultivated through this daily walk.
Exactly. And throughout this material, as we've touched on, the Psalms really serve as both illustration and instruction. Think about Psalm 91.
Right.
It talks about dwelling in the secret place, finding shelter under the shadow of the Almighty. It speaks directly about finding protection, even from dangers that move in darkness.
Right, connecting back to that victory begins in the dark idea.
Precisely. It shows safety isn't invisibility, but in God's hidden presence, even when things feel unseen or vulnerable.
And what about guidance? Finding truth?
Well, look at Psalm 19. It talks about how the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul and enlightening the eyes. That's the core of letting God's truth transform you, showing you where self-deception lies, revealing what needs to change.
In Psalm 92, that picture of flourishing.
Yeah, that powerful image of the righteous flourishing like a palm tree, like a cedar of Lebanon. It paints a picture of that robust life, that fruitfulness that comes from being planted and growing in God through this whole process. It's really living out the blessing he's given.
And acting from victory, Psalm 118 comes to mind.
Absolutely. Declaring the Lord is my strength and song, and has become my salvation. It's about trusting. He's actively working, that his right hand doeth valiantly. It's that confidence.
So these Psalms, they really aren't just background music. They underscore the whole message.
Completely. Finding victory involves that active seeking, trusting his protection even when you can't see everything, letting his truth constantly reshape you, and living from the strength he provides through that connection.
So, okay. We've traced this journey laid out in the sources, from feeling underestimated or being in that quiet, dark phase, to embracing the daily discipline of putting God on, confronting those internal roadblocks like delay and self-deception, and really charting a path forward through consistent honesty and connection with God.
It's a really profound vision, isn't it? For finding victory, not necessarily in external applause or an easy life, but in this deep, disciplined, honest relationship with God, built day by day, often in those unseen moments.
So as you, our listener, reflect on this deep dive, here's maybe something to chew on. The sources place a huge emphasis on this daily active discipline, putting God on, showing up consistently, even if it's just 4 or 5 days out of 7. That's presented as the key to living in God's promised victory and finding that rest, that shelter, like in Psalm 91.
Right, the action seems crucial.
But how do you navigate that space? The space between this call to diligent daily effort of the putting God on and the truth that victory and rest are ultimately found in God, that they're freely given, already attained through him.
That's a great question. The tension between effort and grace.
Exactly. How does that active moment-by-moment choice to put God on relate to simply resting in his strength and his finished work? Something to think about.